All right, so now we come to rule number 6. And this one isn't so much a rule as something that you want to avoid in your writing. So let's go over it. We're going to be talking about a comma splice. A comma splice is a type of run-on sentence because it's joining two independent clauses with a comma. This joining is called a comma splice. Normally, a run-on sentence is when you have two independent clauses running together with no punctuation in between. But if you put a comma in there, it's a comma splice and it's still incorrect. So let's look at this example to help you out. Two pieces of paper slipped out of Desmond's notebook, comma. A student walking by picked them up and ran down the hall after Desmond. So we're going to look before the comma. Two pieces of paper slipped out of Desmond's notebook. We've got pieces as the subject, slipped as the verb, out of Desmond's notebook completes the thought. So it's an independent clause. And now we'll look after the comma. A student walking by picked them up and ran down the hall after Desmond. Student is the subject, walking is the verb, walking by, picked them up and ran down the hall after Desmond. That completes the thought. So it actually has a compound verb, but the point is that you're joining two independent clauses with a comma, and that's incorrect. So when you're going and looking at this comma splice, shown here again, there are three ways to correct it. So if you see CS on your paper, you know you have a comma splice, and you know you have to make a decision. You can do a period in a capital letter to correct it. You can do a comma and add the appropriate fanboy conjunction to it. Or, if you really want to connect the thoughts together, you can use a semicolon. The semicolon is reserved when you feel like the two of them have to be joined in some way, but you still want to show a distinct separation between the two thoughts. So, if you see a comma splice comment on your paper, you know you have to choose one of these three ways to correct it. So let's go and do practice number 6. This is a good time to pause it. I will tell you that one of the sentences is correct. The other, you just have to point out where the issue is. So again, this is a good time to pause, and when you're ready, resume the tape again. All right, the computer screen was hard to read. Light from the window created a reflection on the screen surface. And it should be relatively easy. You go and look at that comma, read before and read after, and you'll realize there's two independent clauses, so the comma splice is right there. Fitness is important to Sandra, comma, she jogs every morning. Again, you're going to read before the comma and after the comma. You're going to realize that both of them are independent clauses, so you have to do something to that comma. Number 3, the weather reporter stood in the Arctic cold, comma, and he swore that it didn't bother him at all, comma, while his eyes kept tearing up. So if you go and you look at it, you go to the first comma and you read before it, and then you read after the conjunction. And you'll notice the weather reporter stood in the Arctic cold is an independent clause. He swore that it didn't bother him at all is also an independent clause. But guess what? There is a comma and a conjunction, so that one is correct. While his eyes kept tearing up may appear at the end of the sentence, but it follows the rule about introductory words or phrases. It's a phrase that is set off by itself, and it should have the comma, so this particular sentence is correct. Number 4, the store will open in the morning, comma, it is closed for inventory. So you zero in on the comma and read before it, and you read after it, and you will notice that they're two independent clauses. So again, you have to do something to that comma in order to correct the sentence. So this concludes the main comma rules and the comma splice that you want to get rid of in your writing, and hopefully it's made it more clear. The real challenge is when you're mixing all the rules together and recognizing it in your own writing. So as the semester goes, if there's comments made, use those comments and figure out the best correction.